Welcome to The Huddle with Dr. Lisa Petit, the podcast where we tackle every parenting challenge with real strategies from a pediatrician and mom. I'm here to help you parent with more confidence, less guilt, and a whole lot more clarity. Whether you're dealing with tantrums, screen time, or just trying to make it through the week, this is your place to reset, refocus, and feel supported. So let's huddle up. Hi, and welcome back to The Huddle with Dr. Lisa Petit. This is your quick, practical parenting pep talk where we trade guilt for guidance and chaos for clarity. I'm Dr. Lisa Petit. Now, let me paint a quick picture for you. So, you've been working all day, you come home, you cook dinner, and your child refuses to eat it. Then, you try for some family time, but bedtime turns into a full-blown meltdown. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home parent. So you're home, you're juggling laundry, dishes, sibling fights, and about 2,000 requests for ice cream and zoo field trips. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, it definitely sounds familiar to me too. In fact, there's actually a recent study that shows that the average working parent, that is a parent working outside of the home, works their usual 9 to 5 and then puts in at least 4 extra hours a day with childcare and family and household tasks. This is on top of their job. There's actually a book that refers to this as the second shift. Now, think about that. If all 4 of those hours are filled with chaos, power struggles, meltdowns, and stress, when exactly do you find time to breathe or to rest or to even take care of yourself, your relationship with your spouse or your partner, friendships, all those things? But now ask yourself this: what if those 4 hours could be different? What if those 4 hours were filled with smoother routines, more connection with your family, and less yelling and emotional outbursts? Wouldn't that be great? Do you feel like that would make your home life and your work life maybe a little bit better? Yeah, definitely. And so today I'm actually breaking down 5 simple steps that can help you parent with more calm and clarity and consistency at home without needing to overhaul your entire life. And these are tools that you can start using today, even if you're in the middle of a very messy season. So let's huddle up. Let's start with the most important and most overlooked piece of the parenting puzzle: self-awareness. So many parenting challenges begin before the child even says or does anything. It starts with our stress, our tone, our own personal triggers. Start by paying attention to your default reactions. So if you have a coworker who makes you upset, do you find yourself yelling before you even realize it? Or do you get upset at your child and threaten consequences that you don't really have an intention on following through on? For example, do you say things like, "You're grounded forever," or "You will never get this phone back as long as you live in this house"? Or sometimes, do you tend to shut down when things get frustrating and just avoid conflict altogether until it boils up and becomes too much? There's no shame in any of this. This is just observation. But it's important for you to do this exercise because when you have that self-awareness, it gives you space to pause, reflect, and then actually choose a better response instead of that automatic reaction. And you don't have to be perfect. I know I say this every time, but you do not have to be perfect. You just have to be present enough to notice what's going on and figure out what's working and what's not. Because otherwise you just keep repeating the same habits and the same behaviors, and that's going to give you the same result, which is stress, chaos, and outbursts. Number 2, we need to set clear expectations. Here's the truth. Kids are not inherently bad. They actually want to do well. And when they're younger, they seek your approval and they want you to be pleased with them. but they can't meet an expectation if they never understood it in the first place. So when you're clear with your child about what you expect from them, that's actually the most kind thing that you can do for them. So when you say it's time to clean up your toys, that's actually more effective than saying, can you be more helpful around here? When you are specific, when you are direct, you actually create an environment where they know exactly what's expected, and you don't have to wait until things fall apart in order to find out where that boundary is. And the earlier you can let your child know what's expected, the better they can rise to meet that expectation. So for example, you might have to remind them 10 times to pick up after themselves. That's normal because you're building a habit. You're not just going to flip a switch. But the more you remind them and the more consistent you are, then they will eventually learn that expectation and they will follow along with it. That leads me to my third piece of advice here, is to be consistent. Consistency is how your child knows that they can trust you. That is what gives them security and stability as they go through the ups and downs of learning how to be a good human in this thing called life. When you are consistent, when you are predictable, then your child learns that they can count on you. They know that you're going to follow through with what you say. So if there's a bedtime routine that you follow, great. Or if there's a consistent consequence for hitting, then you're still sending that message. I mean what I say and you can count on me. And when they know they can count on you, that also means they can trust when you say, I'm going to pick you up after school at 3:00. They know that you're not going to just leave them there indefinitely. And that creates a lot of security for them. Now, on the flip side, inconsistency creates a lot of confusion. So if one day your child hits his brother and you ignore it, but then the next day he hits his brother and you blow up and yell at him, but then you feel guilty and buy him ice cream, well, that makes your child feel like he has to test the boundaries to see if this is going to be an ice cream day or if it's just going to be a day where he gets away with it. So he's not trying to be bad, but he just doesn't know where the lines are. That's where that consistency comes in. Think of consistency as emotional safety. Your child might not love every rule, but trust and believe that they will feel more secure knowing what to expect. My number 4 is to respond, not react. So this one is really hard for a lot of parents, especially when you're in the heat of the moment. Sometimes kids will do things that just make no sense, where the only thing in your mind is, what were you thinking? How did you think this was going to turn out? And that is so frustrating. But when you act on that frustration, your reaction is usually not one that you would really want to have. The magic happens when you can pause before responding to misbehavior. And that tiny pause, whether it's one deep breath, whether it's taking a moment just to recenter and think it through, will actually give you the power to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting emotionally. The other magic with this is that your child is learning how to handle these situations just by watching you. So they're learning more from the situation by how you're handling it than what you're actually saying to them when you speak to them. So for example, if your child gets frustrated and you want them to learn how to speak respectfully, even when they're frustrated, you're going to have to model that behavior because that is teaching them to manage emotions. So again, you're not going to necessarily be perfect every time, but if we can try to be intentional, that's going to make all the difference on so many levels. And then lastly, my number 5, which may actually come as a surprise to some of you, is to encourage, not just correct. So you may have heard me talk before about positive parenting and how it's not necessarily a great approach to parenting because it tends to be more permissive than anything. Yes, boundaries do matter. Correcting your child does matter, and teaching them matters. But positive interactions also matter. We want to make sure that we are encouraging them. You know, we're all really good at pointing out what went wrong. You know, if you are in a restaurant and the food is great, you might not necessarily leave a review. But if the food was terrible, people are far more likely to leave that negative review. So in general, as humans, we do tend to notice the things that aren't going well. But when we're parenting, we want to be very mindful of what we call catching them being good, where you want to point out the moments where they're doing what you want them to do. So for example, when you see that they're getting upset, but they take a deep breath before responding, before rolling their eyes, before doing any of the other negative behaviors that we don't want, you can say, hey, I noticed you took a deep breath. That means you're trying to think before you respond. And that is a good thing. That was really mature of you. Or you can say something like, wow, I really like how you're playing so nicely with your brother. That is powerful. And one of the most important things too is that it teaches them resilience and it teaches mindset. We are definitely going to be having an episode on how mindset affects your child and how it affects your parenting, but just praising their effort, saying that, you know, I can tell that you kept trying at that, even though it was really hard. That is so awesome. Because again, this is not the same as the quote, everybody gets a trophy concept, because it is important for kids to know that it's okay to mess up. It's okay to lose sometimes. And like I said, that is a great topic for another day. But what I'm talking about here is this point that it's okay to catch your child being good. And it's important to catch them being good because everybody needs that little positive feedback, as we go through life. And when kids feel like you see them for the positive things they're doing, that actually motivates them to keep trying. It motivates them to keep working and keep repeating that behavior. Encouragement builds confidence. It reinforces your connection with them, that emotional connection. And it also makes them want to repeat that good behavior that you want to see. So if you're constantly correcting your child, sometimes you might need to take a step back and try to balance it out with a little bit of praise, but it does not have to be over the top. It does need to be genuine, and it should definitely be at a time when you've just corrected them for something. So there you have it, your quick game plan for effective parenting. Just as a recap, we want to start with self-awareness. We want to set clear expectations, make sure you're consistent. We want to respond to our children's behavior and not just react to it. And number 5, encourage, don't just correct. None of these steps require you to be a perfect parent. All it requires is for you to have some intention and to be a little bit mindful about these things. And the truth is, even one small shift in any of these areas, just like taking that extra breath or noticing something positive that your child is doing, can make a huge difference over time. If you're looking for more tools to help you follow through on these steps, make sure you head over to yourparentingplaybook.com, and you can also follow me on social media at Real Parenting Playbook on Facebook and Instagram. With all of these, you'll find free resources and tips. You'll also get information on upcoming webinars and some simple strategies to help you along the way so that you can feel more confident and less stressed as a parent. So thanks for joining me today for this huddle. And if you found this to be helpful, I'd love it if you could leave a review or just forward it to a friend who's also in the parenting trenches with you. And make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. So until next time, make sure you hang in there, because we know that parenting is hard, but I promise you've got this, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today in The Huddle. If today's episode helped you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. Have a question or a suggestion for a topic? You can submit your ideas at www.yourparentingplaybook.com/huddle. Your question might be featured on the show, and it could help another family along the way. That's all for today's huddle. See you next time as we keep tackling these parenting challenges together.